Kamala Harris and this whole issue with the United States freedom of speech. So there's a lot of things to note and talk about, which I don't really think that, even when you watch Joe Rogan or even Robert F. Kennedy Jr. or Jimmy Dore or any of these channels, they're all talking about it and they're all talking around it, but I still only think they're scratching the surface, really. I don't think they're getting down to any real explanation, which they should do, because Kamala Harris is meant to be the Vice President of the United States of America, and in all the television appearances, she's extremely shallow. None of them are getting into the deep evidence or philosophical aspects of it, or the truth. The truth is the truth, and that is so Kamala Harris is coming out with all this discussion about the First Amendment now, saying that it's a privilege, not a right. Well, she didn't even start coming out with that until I don't really want to start making any claims or anything, but I mean, when you learn the English Bill of Rights, it is complete and total freedom of speech in respect to political matters. It's actually inside or outside of Parliament for matters that you want to take to Parliament. So it's basically for exploring and challenging the laws and getting them changed, or even in a grievance with the government, right? And that is complete and total freedom of speech. But in the English law, this is not the Convention rights of the Human Rights Act or European Convention rights, peaceful protest, right to freedom of expression. They're all completely separate and different. They're like inalienable rights that people have got all the time, even if you're having an ice cream in a park, right? They're not powers. There's a difference between convention rights and, certain rights are different to using powers. The police use powers. When you're petitioning the government in matters of church, state and law, you actually are using powers. And that was, we've always had powers through Magna Carta, because you need powers to apprehend criminals. And we get those powers from Magna Carta, and they actually come from Lex Talionis, which is even older Egyptian, Babylonian, Roman law, and I would have thought probably even older, possibly even Gaelic and Celtic, but not even written down. I mean, you've got the Sphinx with its claws in the ground. We've done an entire paper on this, right? It's old. That law is, we're talking ancient. That law is undoubtedly going back before even the Greeks, or probably before the First Testament, I would have thought, in the Bible, before even writing. It's most definitely a divine right and God's law, because it's let us pray. You're not just sat there with your hands together praying, because the word's also synonymous with food. You can't eat unless you're a vegetarian, unless you pray. So, it's flip side of the coin, and that's the thing I don't think Kamala Harris can reconcile, unless she's sending an FBI SWAT team after you, and then she's all for it. But the citizens, can the citizens have the right to bear arms? Well, guns are still legal in America. It's not, they're common. In England, it's just not. We just don't have them. So I don't know how Kamala Harris can be coming out with all this thing when the average Americans have got guns, right? But anyway, what I've also realised is this: since 1688 in England, which is only reaffirmation, we definitely have the right to bear arms and for defence, and we have powers to not be liable to criminal prosecutions if we are challenging the government. But you can't draw arms and attack unless there is a force against you which is acting unlawfully. and then you can defend yourself. But if you attack and charge, then you're putting yourself liable to be shot, which is effectively the same as they've got in America when you will go into someone's house and they can shoot you, right? It's basically that principle with the right to petition, you know. But if you say, like, you know, the king and you know, the soldiers and the police and people in parliament or whatever, you know, if everyone charged them, then they're putting themselves liable to be shot, you know, acting in defence, unless they dug a pit in the floor and covered it up and it was entrapment and they didn't tell you there was a pit there, and like you know, you know, it's, I would have thought it's in the same argument as self-defence, you know, on those parameters, you know, but you know, the Bible's entrenched in British law. The principles of the Bible are entrenched in British law, and you have to swear on the Bible in British law. And, you know, the Bible's got the Ten Commandments and thou shalt not kill anyway. So even without the modern legislation, even without certain acts of law which say that you're not allowed to kill or murder or whatsoever, you're still swearing on the Bible. And, you know, if you are a Christian or a Protestant within the English law, you wouldn't kill someone anyway. You know, you wouldn't do that because it's your religion anyway, you know. And if you did, even without the law of the land, without the legislation of the country, you know, you might go seek forgiveness from a priest anyway and confess it, you know. So there are lots of aspects to this which are quite serious that people just don't want to go into. But the fact and truth is that in England we have got powers. It didn't give us complete and total freedom of speech, but there weren't even that really many freedom of speech laws in England. There weren't very intricate, numerous laws on the nuances of speech, the nuances of humour, the nuances of, you know, language and context. Anyway, right? Now, what I think now in America, after I still haven't read the Articles of Confederation in their entirety, but it's to whom and to them, or to them and to whom, right? They create the United States of America. Now, in the actual Constitution, they've already created the United States of America, but then it's we the people. Now, this is really important. I don't think Kamala Harris will like this as a lawyer, as a person who works in the courts in America in a law, someone who likes authority and has enjoyed authority and has been brought up, you know, saying that she's educated, certain other people aren't, like, you know, Homer Simpson or whoever, right? The American Constitution as it is, right, is that there's no point pursuing or trying to persuade or talk anyone into getting Congress to make a law that would take away the freedom of speech, right? And when it says freedom, it is freedom. It doesn't have any exceptions or nuances or anything explained or described. It doesn't need to go into detail. If it needed to go into detail, it would have gone into detail, but it didn't, right? It says freedom of speech. What I think they've done in America with that, and by the way, you know, if Kamala Harris is wanting to, she knows she can't take away that clause of legislation, so she's trying to reinterpret it. The first thing to say about the American Constitution is that it is written by and set in law as not the king, not the ministers, not the barons and lords, and not a judge, not anyone with an authority who has the right of interpretation solely to themselves because they wrote it. It is we the people. The people of the United States of America are given, they're granted a tributation for writing and enacting that law into effect. They have written it. So that means that if there is any dispute over the interpretation of that law, it shall be decided by the people, we the people, and not by one sole individual rank file person or anyone. We the people decide what it means. and it can't be changed. Congress are the only authority that can make and change laws. The people can't. Congress can, but we, the people, can interpret the laws. So what the majority of America believes that means is what it means, right? And if it comes down to it, then they will have to get them all to sign a petition on it, on what it means. It cannot be one sole individual. It is we, the people, that's for sure. Now, what I think they've done is they've looked at England and they've tried to think, well, how can we make it better, and not, and what I think they've done is, I think they've looked at the Parliament clause, which says that, it's freedom of speech, but only in matters of church, state and law, right? And what they've done is they thought, well, maybe it's a bit much having, complete and total powers and be completely immune from prosecution, right? And instead, what they've done is, said, we won't give them absolute, total protection from prosecution, but we'll give them complete and total freedom of speech, even if it's not for matters of church, state and law, just in general for everything. The only other alternative interpretation of it is, it's petition, freedom of speech, and the press in matters of elections and petitions, so you can put it in the newspaper or put flyers up without any obstruction, or else you can't challenge the opposition officially if you can't do that. I think that's what Kamala Harris has now started to say, right? But I don't. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Jimmy Dore would vehemently defend the fact that freedom of speech is absolute, complete, and total freedom of speech, right? But I think the main misunderstanding is the freedom of press, because I think they make it just means like the company, the business, the newspaper company business can do what the fuck they want. That's not the case. It's freedom of the press to access. It's like a door, It's like, if you've got the freedom of the door, you're allowed to, open and close it and go through it when you want. That's what it means by freedom of the press. When you press the door to open it, it opens if you want to go out or come back in, right? It's the actual, facilitation of it, access to use of it, right? Now, there could be an argument that those three things in the First Amendment are all for political facilitation. But if they're not, then, there's a lot of things the newspapers have been doing which are just, trash, spying into people's businesses and their own private affairs and business, sports, commerce, a lot of things, when it's not actually political. And the newspapers themselves have just been... People are meant to go to the newspaper with stories, right? Because, that's their business. People come to them with stories, right? Otherwise, if the newspaper are out getting stories all the time, well, they've got reporters, but, I think it's got to the point where the newspapers don't need the people anymore, because the newspapers are going to be the ones who decide what's in the newspaper or not. And that goes on to another conversation about Julian Assange and what's really been happening with all the computers since Bill Gates, which is kind of like a side conversation, but it does stem from freedom of the press. But that kind of is a bit separate. But definitely in the First Amendment, I definitely think that what they've done is it says that, people to gather peaceably and so forth. So I think that they've given, it's almost like the Public Meeting Act in England, for purpose of political, but it says the people to gather peaceably, generally. Why would you even want to gather anyway, It doesn't look like they've given them immunity from prosecution, but there are certain immunities. The thing with the Senate and impeachment is they're like prosecuting them, government officials that they've committed an offence in order to remove them from the government. But then apparently they can be prosecuted separately for the actual crime itself, right? That means that the government doesn't actually prosecute them. It actually removes them through that process. And senators and so forth, if they commit offences, they can still go around their business. Now, if a senator hasn't been removed from the Senate, if the Senate hasn't prosecuted them and impeached them and removed them, then they've still got the lawful right to attend. So I would have thought that when it says that senators can be prosecuted for crimes and so forth, but they still have to be able to go to the Senate. So if they've not been removed from the Senate by impeachment and they're still a member, then they've got the right to go there, right? So I don't know how that works if they're in their own home state and they've been prosecuted for something, but they're still elected. Maybe how can they go on surgery and see their electors in their local area? Does that mean that they're in prison most of the week, but they're allowed to get out of prison to go see their electors? I think that their office in their surgery surely is part of the job of seeing people so they can go represent them in the Senate as well. So I would have thought that if they're prosecuted, it seems like they might be open to civil actions and being fined or whatever, and possibly not put in prison. Because if they're in prison, they can't go to the Senate. And if they haven't been impeached in the Senate and removed, then it says they can't be stopped from going there, right? So that means that unless the Senate impeach them, they can be prosecuted but not imprisoned or prevented from going about their duties and job as a senator. That's how I'm kind of working it out now in my head, off like just kind of looking at it from thinking about it a little bit, right? Although I haven't read it in great detail, and this is not all the subsequent amendments. This is from going from the basic model which they've got, which is a little bit like parliamentary privilege in a way. Now, so why, I think as for the citizens, I don't know whether they've given the citizens the immunity, but if you think about it, what is bringing a case to the Congress? You've got to investigate it, you've got to get your evidence, and you've got to be able to deliver it. And you've got to go around, be able to go ask the electors and so forth and so forth. Now, the police they've given the police powers in local felonies, in local crimes. The police have got powers. It's casework. I can't, I'm not suggesting that, the citizens have got, immunity or powers. But what I'm saying is, it would be ironic that all America are armed and it's common to have guns there. And if you can go into someone's house, they can shoot. Someone comes into your house, you can shoot them in self-defense, right? But they're going on now. Kamala Harris is going on about, we haven't got any powers. Well, you've already got more powers than you've got in England when you're not using any. In England, when you're not pursuing any political cause and you're not using any powers, you don't have the power to shoot someone like that in self-defense if they come into your house and no one's got guns. So in America, I'm scratching my head how Kamala Harris is working it out that the average citizen, right, in America is armed, has a gun in their house, and if someone comes into their house, they can use the gun and shoot them, right? And they haven't even touched on politics, right? That they've got powers, right, for defence for sure. If someone's knocking on their door asking them to sign something, or even holding a sign up saying, get Trump out or whatever, Trump's a cunt, they're probably not going to shoot them, So I don't know how far you can go with signs and advertising boards, even if you light up the fucking Statue of Liberty, even if you put fairy lights on the Statue of Liberty saying, Trump is, a Kong. It's it's public property, isn't it? And it's an advertisement. I don't know what the advertisement laws are in America, but you could probably do that without putting anyone at risk of harm or damage or whatever. This is the thing. But in England, And in Europe, we've got these convention rights and the Human Rights Act and all this, European Convention on Rights, freedom of expression, freedom of speech, freedom of so forth. But those aren't powers. Those are affirmations of citizens going about their business, what they've got the right of, unless an authority brings in its powers, and then it has the right to restrict your convention rights when it uses authority or powers. Now, the thing is, in England, with the right to petition under the 1688 Bill of Rights, you are taking up and using powers. Well, you cannot be prosecuted. That means that a police officer cannot arrest you while you're pursuing that directive. So, if a police officer puts up powers to vacate an area and you are asking people for signatures in that area, you cannot be arrested or prosecuted, right? Now, the police officer might say, like, he can remove you from the area, but, that's when you get a clash, a sparring. And I actually now believe that it's almost like a picket line, really, If you're not attacking the police officer, he can't raise his he can't hit you with his baton, right? Now, if he attacks you when you're using the right to petition, it is an unlawful act against you, and you have the right to self-defense. So you're looking at, like, that surely is the situation of dueling for sure. And who would want it any other way? This is the thing. Because you might be asking those people to sign something to get the government to take away those police powers or change them, or the law in which the police are using. And I don't think Kamala Harris actually believes that the people have the right to even get the laws changed anymore, because Kamala Harris seems to want everyone to. She doesn't even want people to vote. I mean, it's not voting anymore when a lot of delegates put forward a candidate who there's no opponent to. It's almost kind of like the Lords and Barons are choosing the king, and the Americans wanted to go away from that. There is no, this Kamala Harris, let's all agree on everything together. It's almost like do what I say. It's just ridiculous. I don't know why a human being would even think of that. So, it seems like in America, I definitely think, I'll probably agree with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. that, like freedom of speech is complete and total freedom of speech. Now, what going into the freedom of speech matter itself, this is what I think about the freedom of speech as it is now. When they're talking about this argument that freedom of speech doesn't mean, the right to lie or mislead or whatever, right? Freedom of speech is using your mouth. Speech comes from the mouth, so it's freedom of the mouth, okay? That means it doesn't matter what comes out of it. Or else, now when you're getting into other laws like fraud, it's different, because fraud is engaging in a particular thing. You see, Kamala Harris, I think she's missing the point, right? I think Kamala Harris is like in the shallow end of the swimming pool, and she even knows what she's talking about herself when she opens her mouth, right? You've got a mouth, right? And you emit sounds out of it, okay? Freedom of speech. I think you're missing the point, and you don't even really understand subjects if you think that if it's illegal to defraud someone, right, that is a thing. That is doing something, right, like selling them a magazine, or washing their car or walking their dog, whatever you want, anything, right? If you are defrauding someone, right, you are deceiving them. So, right, let's get this right. You got some, 18-year-old college students with a lemonade stand, not little kids, like 18-year-old college students with a lemonade stand, right? Let's say they're 21 even, right? And let's say that they're selling ice cream for like $1, right? and it says $1 there, right? And they start shortchanging people, right? That is defrauding people, right? So they can be prosecuted. Now, they might do that by using their mouth because they're lying, right? Now, notice that they didn't tell the truth. They lied or they gave false information. But that is a thing. It's called defrauding the public, right? So, freedom of speech, right, is complete freedom of speech. The act of defrauding someone as a criminal offence, right, comes into freedom of speech because if you use speech to defraud someone, that is an offence in itself, right? So you don't need to argue First Amendment, because if you argued First Amendment was complete and absolute freedom of speech, you would never have been able to enact a law which says that it's illegal to defraud someone unless it's on paper. You can only defraud someone by writing down the number 8 when actually the number is 12 when you sell them a bag of crisps, right? But if you sell them it verbally, like, you know, you didn't even make a record of it. You just say, oh, do you want, my sofa? Okay, then, how much is it? Well, it's $12 when it actually you take 100 from them, right? And it's all verbal. You've just defrauded them. But notice that you lied, right? So this is the thing with Kamala Harris. I don't really think she has a clue what comes out of her mouth when she's talking. She doesn't even know what's in front of her. It's like you put like a fucking yellow teapot on the table. You know, I don't think Kamala Harris knows what the fuck it is. Like, oh, there's a teapot there, right? You know, it's like the Transformers, you know, like it's Optimus Prime. It's fucking Elon Musk. Oh, look, there's a truck there. There's a fucking truck. You know, no, it's not a truck. It's a robot. Oh, I didn't know that. Fuck me, Kamala. It's defrauding the public with his mouth. Wow. Oh, look, it's illegal already. Wow, Kamala, I couldn't believe that. Guess what? Now you can prosecute, paint the town red, Kamala. You can prosecute everyone on YouTube for defrauding people. Yes, particularly when they're taking money off them through monetization for false information they gave out. Oh, that's a good idea. Why don't we just prosecute them all? Oh, but there's millions of them now. Oh, bloody hell, are we going to control it all? Well, you know, this is the thing. Now you've got AI and Neil Mohan with his super gadgets, you know. What the truth is with Kamala Harris is this. In life, humans are humans. And when you go to a cocktail bar or a pub or a club or a hockey pitch or a fucking Raiders match, or skiing, or whatever, people talk to people. Humans are humans. Have a few drinks, go into a cocktail bar, you know, let's go to McDonald's, let's go on holiday to Florida. I was speaking to a couple about their holiday, right? It's a conversation, it goes into the ether, right? It's there, you talk, it's gone. Humans are humans. Now what's happening is every time a human does something, it's being documented and recorded, and someone's checking it and analysing it, right? Now, we've got a problem, because now we're starting to learn that humans aren't always that honest. Some people saw that the whole time, the whole way through, from 500 BC, right? This is part of the Christian religion, forgiveness, right? So we know humans don't tell the truth. That's why some people don't trust people. That's the point. That's why people don't choose certain friends. That's the point, right? But no one arrested them. They said, oh, I don't like that person. They're a liar. I'm not going to hang around with them anymore. Why do other people hang around with them? Well, they might not mind it. I don't know. Ask them. Ask them. Ask them. Ask them. Why don't they do a national survey? You know, we asked 1 million Americans, why do you hang around with people who lie? oh, look, here's a woman here. Oh, my husband was cheating on me. I couldn't believe it. I never knew. He's been doing it for 30 years. Oh, wow. Wise guy, huh? Wise woman, clever woman, finally worked it out. This is the thing, right? People are people. I think what Kamala Harris now is almost like one of those wives who has just realised that husband's been cheating on her for the last 30 fucking years, right? And gone, oh my God, I can't believe it. I cannot believe it. This is the thing, Kamala. She needs a slap round the face. Wake up, woman. This is the thing. People are people. That's why they've got forgiveness. Oh, it's a religion. Did you realise? Oh, damn, sins. There's a box there you can go. Maybe you have to send your husband into the confessions box now. This is the thing. Oh, they got a box for that. Sweet Jesus. Sweet Jesus. Bang some nails in her hands and put her on a cross. This is the thing, right? The problem is that all of these things can be prosecuted usually under certain offences. If someone is lying to an extent where it is defrauding someone, involves money, and someone's at a loss and a gain from it, that's a crime. It's called fraud, theft, or even false representation. There's already a criminal offence for it. Now, this is Kamala's problem and the FBI. How are we going to prosecute all these cases? There'll be a fucking backlog, like the fucking queue, like the pilgrimage to fucking Jerusalem. They're all queuing up to fucking confess in the sins fucking box. This is the thing. Get Pope Francis in. Maybe he needs to go on a mission. Instantly, they've got documented records and analysable video footage of people doing it. Oh, they're doing it, Kamala. Look at that. Oh, you wouldn't let it lie. You wouldn't let it lie. Oh, we're doing it. Oh, look, there's a man having sex with someone's wife behind a curtain. Oh, look, he's doing it all along. I couldn't believe it ever existed. Now, Kamala, oh, they're doing it. Look, listen. Oh, the shock, right? Get them all prosecuted if they broke a law. If you lie and make a loss and put someone else a loss from making a gain, it's called theft. Now, how's Kamala going to do that through all the courts unless she builds new courts? Hey, it's Cop City. Let's build loads of courts and get them all prosecuted. Oh, it's too much work. No, what we'll do is we'll develop a new system where Neil Mohan and his magical AI, Zuckerberg, right, have got a platform called social media. And what they'll do is, instead of going to the trouble of prosecuting someone and arraigning them and putting them through a court and then giving them community service and all these things, we'll just ban them from the platforms. That'll solve everything. And then at least they're not documenting their own crimes anymore. At least they can just do it in the privacy of their own house. Except in Scotland, where if you do it in the privacy of your own house, apparently it's a crime, right? There are plenty of crimes with the use of your mouth and information which is not true or correct constitutes already an offence in law. So if you had complete and total freedom of speech, as Robert F. Kennedy Jr. says, absolute, right? It's not absolute because then you wouldn't be able to defraud someone using speech. It would only apply to on paper, right? So, you've got to use your brain here. So if you aren't defrauding someone, right, you've got freedom of speech. When a comedian comes on the stage, you're going to a show. You know that it's for entertainment purposes, right? So, he comes out with a load of porkies. Oh, there's an Irishman, Englishman, and a Scottishman. Were there really? No, not really. I just made it up. If you ban freedom of speech when it's a lie, you can't have novelists, you can't have fiction, you can't have the arts, right? And you can't have people making errors or mistakes or learn from their mistakes like children, right? This is the thing, right? So, and really, someone very high up in the government, but not David Cameron, and not, definitely not Kamala Harris, not Joe Biden either, but people around, people who are people, academics, other people, they already know all this. They're studying it at freaking university, right? The establishment, powers that be, right, want to create a new society where every man is a king and they can just ban or block any other person if they don't like what they're doing or saying and have to speak to them ever again, which is in itself antisocial. That is antisocial. Being social is mixing with other humans, different kinds of humans, different types of humans, different religions of humans, different ethnicity of humans, different caricature of humans, different opinion of humans, different sexes of humans, of the two sexes there are, or some variation of weaker or stronger of each in between, which is only like a temperature gauge. There's no such thing as a temperature, until you set make up numbers, I don't want to go into that conversation, but it's anti-human, it's anti-social. Part of being human is expressing the full repertoire of emotions, laughing, crying. This is what babies go through: spontaneous laughing, spontaneous crying, and so forth. Humour, laughter, tickling, hugging, crying, even possibly, scrapping and fighting and wrestling. They've got WWF wrestling in America still. They ain't banned that yet, wrestling. They're still entertaining. It seems to me that only the chosen ones, the fame, the stardom, the actors are allowed to demonstrate these extremes of the human caricature and repertoire. But the citizens, no, we will merely watch. We shall be restricted in our human emotions and let the actors do it for us, Well, you used to be able to laugh and you used to be able to cry, It's Brad Pitt, doing a good laughing skit. But the citizens, no, we don't laugh at people anymore. It upsets them. Why are you going to watch Brad Pitt do it? Well, he's doing it for you, It's ridiculous. You need to... The problem with Harris is that, anyone who thinks that they should ban any citizen from doing anything before they've banned their glorified, gurus from doing it, and even for entertainment, blasting guns everywhere, why not ban them first? Why not ban Hollywood? Why not prosecute Hollywood? Surely the person who came up with the idea, if Tim Burton hasn't got one of the most perverse and freakish minds on planet Earth, and there are people far more worse than Tim Burton, I don't know what is. He conjured these things up, these wicked, nasty contradictions in life, and yet, we have a day of the year, Halloween, where we celebrate all the ghosts and spooks and nastiness and tricks and so forth. Are we going to ban Halloween? Because it celebrates wickedness, tricks, and evil. It isn't a lie, a trick or treat. Hey, I think Kamala Harris. People can't tell lies on Facebook except on Halloween. Trick or treat. This is the thing. It's childish. There's a deep lacking of intelligence for a woman who's supposedly meant to know every single bit of legislation in American law and prosecuted people through court cases and civil cases and, had to follow procedure rules and work in government, organising departments, and now the vice president. Yet she's going on television, on Oprah, coming out with, wishy-washy crystal stuff, what makes Marianne Williamson look like a PhD in biochemistry. This is the thing. It's just dumb. The dumbness, they don't even know what they're saying or talking about. You're arguing over nothing. It's like a pie powder court, It's literally something much ado about nothing. It's almost kind of like, the woman walking in on her husband having sex when he's been doing it for 30 years. Oh, now we're going to do something about it. Well, we've been trying to tell you all the way along, but you won't listen to us. It's just insane. What is the church for? What is the point in the religion and the belief? What are these things here for? No, someone knew about it. Well, apparently the vicar knew all along. He came in and confessed his sins the other week. I forgave him. This is the thing. It's this freedom of speech thing. There were already laws in place for quite a lot of things which involve speech, which are illegal. But I think what they're trying to do is they don't like now this social media thing, people being free to say things which has these influences and effect. It's influence and effect, right? But the worst thing is that the government, both the English and American governments and Australia, are, when it comes to the principle of not telling the truth or the principle of misleading people en masse, the government are worse. Because up till this social media point, all the average citizens have just been, being wrong or telling lies, amongst themselves in a diffused general manner. It's never been in a mass orchestration except the newspapers, which is when we'll get to the freedom of the press, right? The government have been issuing large amounts of information, actually, which mislead and lie to the public, particularly in England about the 1688 Bill of Rights and the right to petition, things they don't really want you to know about. You don't have powers or they don't exist, things like that. Or when they want to try and make or change laws and make people forget about certain things, they need to convince, all the people, all these foods that apparently are really bad for us, but, saying that they're good for us, having them on TV, encouraging people to have all these things, bake a cake, stick some cream on it and eat 50,000 of them. This is the thing. And the governments have allowed the television with all these laws and allowed radio and allowed magazines, and then we'll get to this. I might as well throw this that side thing that I mentioned, the computer thing, which is this, right? Bill Gates invented this mass Microsoft computer thing that, Bill Gates is attributed to this Microsoft thing. Everyone have a home computer, right? Standardized home computers. Other companies are available, like Linux or whatever, right? Now, we got told that, there might be a virus or there might be, something like that. And then they started pitching to us these anti-virus things, because your computer might malfunction or slow down or not work properly or something annoying pop up on it. And they started, telling people, you need to pay money for these antivirus things or these firewalls, right, to stop people going on the computer. But what they didn't tell us is that even if you have got a firewall to stop someone getting onto your computer and messing around with it, that didn't necessarily say that someone is not intercepting your communications that come out of it, which basically means that, someone might not be able to come into your house, but if you drive to the park, they might have watched you drive past, right? So they could see where you're coming and going. That is your communications leaving and coming in, right? They didn't tell us about that back in 2000, 2005. It was all about viruses, malfunctions, malware, and so forth. They didn't tell us the main secret elite method of what actually has been going on. And this is that all of the newspapers and all of these, Kevin O'Sullivan caricatures with, bag of chips on his head and, thick NHS glasses like Elton John, right? They've all been spying on everyone and they already knew everything about everyone and they were playing games with it. You know, they were listening into Elton John. They were, you know, now it's Prince Harry and so forth. They never said back then, in 2000 and 2005, oh, why don't you get a virtual private network? It stops any of these people knowing what you're up to, right? It stops the newspaper putting a front cover newspaper on there, you know, winding you up with an indirect innuendo. You know, we know what you've been doing, but we're not going to tell everyone that we know, but you will know that we know, you know, or whatever. All that. And now what has happened is that now, you know, they've Microsoft basically made their own firewall and antivirus, right? So you didn't need all those things. But now the new thing, which they never told you in the first place, is virtual private network, because it's to do with all your communications and activity, which they could have told us that in the first place. But no, don't tell us about that. So what they were doing was all their dirty newspaper people and so forth were spying on people the whole time. That's how they were doing it. But they were just telling us to protect your computer from viruses and malware, not from privacy of communications. And now it turns out, and they've had to have Prince Harry in the newspaper for all this, because, oh, even Prince Harry's a victim of it. But it's how the royals and the government knew what every citizen was up to anyway. But they've been doing it from even paper and letters, you know, the right to open postmasters opening mail and looking inside the letters and so forth. It's part of the English heritage, you know. Because Royal Mail comes from, it was only for the royals, the Royal Mail, until the public adopted it and took it on. So we've got a situation now where it's worse now, because the nightmare that, I don't think everyone has realised this now, but they're starting to, and the whole public, when the whole public realises what actually has really been going on, but now you've got some other ball players in there, because every Tom, Dick and Harry, the anonymous, every, you know, anonymous and spammer payback channel is doing this. So it's not even the newspapers now. It's kind of like its own thing, like, you know, golf or cricket or tennis. It's just, you know, spying on people, voyeurs, you know, pedo, you know, perverts, that they're perving people. Their hobby is other people's business. Nosy Parkers. It's not just the newspapers doing it now and making a joke out of it. Every fucking cunt's doing it. It's just, I don't see Kamala Harris, you know, making a new law that people should not perv into other people's business that is not theirs. What they've done is they've got us all to put our stuff on the internet and tell people what we're up to. So then it's perfectly okay and normal then for everyone to know what you're doing, including the government, and then start telling you what you should do in your own house, right? But the thing is, if the public actually really woke up like this and knew that Kevin O'Sullivan and, you know, I've been actually advocating Julian Assange because, you know, standing up for his rights doesn't mean that I believe in the press and what the press have been doing. Because the freedom of the press meant that every person had a right to access and use the newspaper to inform other members of the public about important things. So I could put an advert in a newspaper and say that I'm doing a petition, or I could put an advert in the newspaper and say what I wanted. That's freedom of the press, right? What the press did through the 80s is want a monopoly on the press rather than not being freedom of the press. It's their press and they're free to do what they want with it. Not it's the press is free for everyone to use. And then they cranked up the prices. They banged tax on it when you're not supposed to pay tax on political adverts or charitable adverts. They're charging us tax. They all need prosecuting for not tax evasion. It's actually charging tax when you're not due it. And if it's been going to the government, then, you know, that means that Jim Hara is in deep shit and trouble as well, you know, because they've been taking money from newspapers and he's meant to have been going around inspecting the newspapers' accounts and checking who they've been taking money off, right? So that could be another knighthood lined up next to Tony Blair, although I'm not sure, you know, let's give him the benefit of the doubt. The newspapers slowly started to regiment their affairs until these free ads also, you could have free ads, you know, if it wasn't for profit. They slowly filtered out us, so we were less free to use it or more expensive to use it. And then even their local newspaper reporters, they had an army of reporters, a reporter for every area, right? And then they've suddenly got rid of those reporters now because they're not interested in having reporters asking people what people have been up to. They're actually instead they're just dictating what I think the council decides what news is going to be in the newspaper, you know, now, or Labour Party headquarters or even Conservative Party headquarters, you know, and the newspapers are actually now like a corporate entity that is going to dictate the narrative of what's happening. And this is now why they're illegally affecting elections. Because if you say, there was a statement out a few weeks ago, and that statement was, the next Prime Minister after Keir Starmer is going to be this guy, right? You can't say that. Because what you're doing is you're forecasting. You're casting a spell. You are forecasting, like you're saying this is going to be this. Like you can see, it's going to be sunny on Wednesday, right? Now, I know that it might not be sunny on Wednesday. Well, that's a false statement. If you say it's going to be sunny on Wednesday and it rains, then that's misinformation and that's false, right? The thing is, if you say this guy's going to be the next Prime Minister and then he isn't, that's misinformation. But if you say this guy's going to be the next Prime Minister and then everyone else listens and goes, oh, right, everyone else is going to vote for this guy, so, you know, it's inevitable, right? And then that's how they cast their votes. You have just affected everyone to do it. Now, it doesn't matter, right, if you polled, I don't care who you're polling or what you're polling. If you don't poll them, you don't know, and you're not forecasting, right? The election is asking people who they want to vote for. It is Class E, and it is matters to do with an election regarding for or against someone and who is winning, right? You can't do that unless you're running an election, right? So I don't know why the fuck TV channels are doing it, and I don't know why newspapers are doing it. They're all doing it illegally. They're all illegally affecting the outcome of elections now, right? And they've been doing it for probably 50 years or whatever, right? So they're all broken. They all need arresting. And that is something you can fucking look at the records. That is something you can go, oh, it's all documented, it's all documented, it's all documented. Where's the fucking night lawyer? There is 50 years of prosecution backlog for newspapers. I can fucking guarantee that. And TV programmes, more so now on YouTube. Tough, right? So you can line them up in prison, Nigel Farage, Esther McVeigh at the front of the fucking queue, and you can get them all in prison, the fucking lot of them. And then every single newspaper does not have the right to spy on people when there's no public interest. If an event happens, then a member of the public reports it to a newspaper. Then they can publish it. If you've got reporters spying on people, looking for something before it happens or that it might happen, that is criminal. It is spying on people. And, you know, if the newspapers are doing it to other countries, then it could even be espionage, right? Because, you know, all you need is a little bit of a link from one newspaper company and another company, and then it's espionage. Because if you've got a newspaper network in England that, you know, can spy on Tom, Dick and Harry whenever the fuck they want when they press send on an email, right? If that company is the Sun newspaper and they've got an office in fucking Russia, right? It's the same company owned by the same fucking shareholder, and that company is doing the same email messages between Russian members of government. You're fucked, because that is fucking espionage over another country. And the Sun newspaper in England, their office in Russia, if they are intercepting messages between another country's government, that is fucking espionage, and you are under arrest. Right? But Putin is more bothered about people putting his fucking head on a chicken and saying that, you know, he's a piece of poop in a fucking tin. Right? That is the problem. They're all fucked. And all this Kamala Harris thing about, ooh, you know, Jimmy Dore or, whatever it is, Galloway or whoever, right? All this, you know, honest, normal citizens who might not be telling the truth, right? That is the... nothing. That is like fickle. Yet they won't. If they're so bothered about it, why haven't they shut down all the newspapers? Why aren't they all under arrest? Because they've been using them themselves. Is how they've got into their positions and power and held the monopoly themselves. They are the main culprits of it. So, as far as I'm concerned, they're fucked, the whole lot of them. It's one big fuck fest. So, you know, the freedom of speech in opinion and freedom of speech in your own perspective or view, whichever intelligences you are using. If you are a retard, then you express your opinion minus the intellect you don't possess. So if you're not capable of understanding a mathematical problem, you can never understand it or speak the truth about it. And if a part of your brain cannot remember a certain thing, then you can forget. You're not going to remember the exact details of it, right? And if someone misinformed you about something, then you're at liberty to speak as best you can about it. And even, you know, scientists are wrong all the time. They're always updating their theories and saying, oh, yeah, it was wrong. You know, Kamala Harris, really, she's like, she's not a deep sea diver. She's splashing around in puddles when she really has not got a fucking clue, you know, what is in the fucking ocean. But you cannot be in a position of the Vice President of the United States of America if you cannot encompass all these things into your understanding of humans. Because there are people with disabilities. There are people with handicaps. Everyone's really handicapped. What if you've not got the ability of self-reflection? What if you don't always look in the mirror before you talk and think, maybe if I say this, it might upset that person or it might mislead them, whatever. Some people don't have that capacity because genetically they don't, or it's part of their character or religion or whatever. This is the thing. But yet, we're welcoming all religions in. We have different customs. Some countries have a custom of playing a prank on someone, initiation. Some cultures have a custom of, taking someone hunting and catching a pheasant, right? They're meant to be welcoming all these in, but they're actually not, because Harris has got the titty twister out the back, mashing all the cars up. Come into the titty twister. Right? And after Biden's finished with you, then you'll all be good little fucking obedient clones, right? Into the New World Order religion, which they're at the front of the shop, they're selling this thing. The land of, the American dream where everyone's welcome, but yeah, out the back, it's fucking, Optimus fucking Biden, When we're finished with them, everyone's going to trash compactor and come out as a fucking little obedient little fucking, a little fucking Zuckerberg. A little fucking Zuckerberg clone, little smarmy Zuckerberg clone out of the fucking backside, right? That'll be alright. What little Zuckerberg clones walking around, smarmy Zuckerberg clones, politically correct. This is the thing, right? Which is complete lie out what they've got outside the front. But people know this. This is why they make these movies, but they don't ban these movies. This is the thing. The arts are not necessarily the truth. The muses, amusement, mocking the wrongs. Humans, how do you deal with these, things. Laugh about it. Make humour of it. That's the whole thing, you know. But, you know, dictating what people should say and do, is going back to slavery. This is the thing. But I don't think Kamala Harris really understands what the fuck the actual law is. You know, you've got all these multiple acts of law which already pretty much legislate on most of the things that are quite bad, right? But they've got no way of policing it now online. And literally what they've got is a massive database of evidence against people. They don't even need to reinterpret the First Amendment. You don't need to reinterpret the First Amendment or change it, because the things that are that bad on there are already legislated for. You know, all the rest of it is, you know, freedom of expression and freedom to be yourself. Accepting that certain people have got handicaps, but also certain people have personality quirks. You know, some people say hello, some people don't say hello. You know, some people, you know, you say hello to you and they turn your back on them. You know, this is the thing. I just don't think that these new Democrats understand people, but their model is that they will be at the front and everyone else will sit in a chair facing them and will listen to them, and hopefully they will copy them and be just like them, and everyone loves it and claps. But that's fake, because everyone isn't clapping and everyone doesn't love it, and in fact they use some claps that are fake. If Kamala Harris is going to ban freedom of information, misinformation, right? Studio audience of 500 people, right? Everyone sat in their homes, right? Rah, rah, rah. No one fucking clapped, Camilla. It's a recorded, fake sound effect, right? That is misinformation, Kamala. You're under arrest. Come on down. The price is right. Michael Barrymore, you're under arrest for falsifying a group of a body of 1,000 people who is alleged that they thought that joke was funny and laughed. No one fucking laughed. It was fake. You just falsified an entire body of people and claimed, with trying to convince an entire country of people, 1 million people, some of whom were eating fish and chips or farting on their sofa, right? Or tickling their kid, or even, you know, talking to their friend, having a glass of wine and saying how shit this program is, right? You just falsified to the nation that everyone thought it was funny and laughed when it was a fake applause. No one laughed. So why is the fucking presenter and producer of that program not under arrest? So wipe the fucking smile off their face, right? Take the false eyelashes off. They're fake. That's false information, misinformation. How long are your eyelashes? 16-inch. Lie. They're fucking 3mm. You're under arrest for misinformation, right? The fucking lot of them are going to fucking prison, right? And Harris can fucking march them in at the front of the queue and unlock the fucking cell, and when they're all in there, she can walk in there and fucking lock it behind her, because they are lying bastards, and I am not entertained by it. It is false information. The whole fucking show is to be shut down. The show will not go on. You're all fucking under arrest.